Good morning or good afternoon, as the case may be, and welcome to Distribution Strategy Group's Technology Leader Panel, How Tech Elevates Customer Experience and Personalization. We'll be introducing in a moment featured panelists Graham Smith from Esker, Kerry Jordan from Epicor, Brian Yelm from ProKeep, and Alec Wishpolek from Continuum. I'm your host, Jonathan Bine, and wanted to do a couple of housekeeping things first before we get into the content portion of our webinar. So one of our sponsors today actually is Distribution Strategy Group for the product Customer Experience RX. And Customer Experience RX is our offering to help distributors measure and improve both customer experience and customer satisfaction. The key point about this offering is that it is very, very easy to deploy, literally just a couple of hours for a distributor to deploy this, to get the information they need and actionable insights to improve that customer sat and customer experience, keep them coming back, which would be part of today's theme. Wanted to talk also about our upcoming second AI conference for Applied AI for Distribution. So the Distribution Strategy Group is delighted to announce our second annual conference, Applied AI for Distributors, June 4th through 6th at the Chicago Marriott O'Hare. Be sure to join the more than 300 distribution leaders to talk about how AI can help you run a better and more profitable company. The general session lineup is very exciting. Come listen to me. Well, there you go. Former head of go-to-market for OpenAI, Zach Cass, executives from Wesco, Granger, William Blair, and more as we explore everything AI from growing sales to cybersecurity risks and solutions. You'll also have the opportunity to see solutions from over 35 technology companies sharing how they're incorporating AI into their distribution dedicated software. Go to distributionstrategy.com and click on the top banner for more information. And at this point, I'd like to introduce and welcome our distinguished panelists. Graham Smith, Business Development Manager at Esker. Kerry Jordan, Group Vice President, Product Management at Epicor. Alex Wishpolek, CEO and founder of Continuum. And Brian Helm, VP of Product at ProKeep. Welcome. Nice to have you all here.
I
think what we want to do is start with a definition of customer experience, and then we're going to go into a broader discussion about really the theme of the panel. Where does tech enable a better customer experience? I should mention also, by the way, we very much want to have questions from our audience. Depending on the question, we might answer it in a moment, or we might decide to defer it to a later time, but definitely use that question button there on the bottom to submit your questions. So I want to start with just a broad definition of customer experience. We think it is the totality of the experience across all touch points and all capabilities that a distributor has. So the touch points could include something that's happening in branch, whether it's will call or counter service. It can include interaction with a field sales rep. It can include customer service, either by phone or by email or chat even. It can include tech support, delivery, and also even billing as a touch point, not to mention online, whether it's mobile or more traditional desktop. So these would be places that the keyword is touch point, where the customer comes into contact with the distributor. Some of these touch points are also capabilities, but some other capabilities that distributors provide, these are more broad channel functions, are product selection, product availability, proximity. So how close is the branch or perhaps the DC to where the customer is, and value-added services. So that's a broad thing. I think the key word here is that this is the totality of the experience across all the touch points and all the capabilities. I want to open it up now. Let's talk about first of all, why does customer experience matter in distribution?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I think I'll go ahead and get started. So great to be here. I'm Carrie Jordan, Group Vice President of Product Management at Epicor. And I just wanted to chime in to say, I think customer experience really matters because it is really the lifeblood of an organization. And as you saw, there are multiple touch points, multiple areas of the business, different ways in which you interact with your customers. And customers expect a consistent quality experience. And then that means you have to ensure the data that your employees have in each of these different areas have the same data. They're informed when they're speaking with your customers, and that can be a real challenge in the organization to keep that information, consistent and accurate. So that's why I think it's really important that we all be talking today about that flow of data across the organization and how important it is to inform those who are interacting with your customers.
Yeah, I
Beautiful.
think those are great points, Gary. So for everyone on the call, I'm Alex Witzpollock, founder and CEO of Continuum. I think it's pretty obvious. Like everyone's talking about customer experience. So it's a hot topic. I, I would say less than just why does it matter. Thinking about what is the impact it can have on your organization, and if you look at a lot of like tech companies and you talk about NPS, obviously, Jonathan, you have an NPS solution to track Net Promoter Score. What's interesting is you'll actually see a direct correlation between the NPS scores you have and the revenue drivers that you see. And I think it's easy for everyone on this call, like, customer experience can be a little soft, fluffy concept sometimes, right? But when you can start to tie it and correlate it to revenues, that's when you can really start to quantify it. And then you start to organizationally make different decisions. So I always say, like, it almost doesn't matter where you start in the NPS score or customer experience score. The important thing is that you're tracking it and you have a baseline to start to track against. And then it's just, how do we start to move that north? And along with that, you'll start to see the revenues, the profit margins go in correlation with it. So I'd say, step one is, why does it matter? Well, because obviously the better customer experience you have, the easier it is to do business. Revenues will follow, right? And so it's almost, you have to have this somewhat blind leap of faith that is accurate. That's true. And then once you start to measure it, quantify it, and get systematic around it, you can actually start to quantify the impact that it's making in your organization.
I love that. That's a point that's often lost in the B2B sector. And I think the B2C sector really understands exactly that relationship that you described, which is better customer experience leads to better NPS. Better NPS is going to track with revenue and profit. Graham and Brian, thoughts?
Graham, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I'll hop in. I mean, I think Alex and Carrie had a perfect summation of the impact of CX on the organization, and I really like what you said, Jonathan, where sometimes those things can get lost in the B2B sector. I think when it comes to direct to customer models, obviously it's very easy to see, hey, if our customers like this, that's going to have an increase in revenue. But a lot of times, being able to track and measure the impact on service, for example, right? It's tough to actually tie that potentially to a revenue. But if you have happy customers, that's going to mean more repeat customers, and maybe they're referring other customers to you.
Yeah, just to throw a different angle on it, agree with everything that's been said. Brian Young here with ProKeep. We talk a lot about this business and the relationships that are an insane part of it, right? At the core, you're building relationships with your customers, and B2B, B2C, we're all C's at the end of the day. We're all customers, we're all consumers. We have expectations of how we want to communicate with those that we do business with. So we think a lot about the relational aspect here, using technology to enhance that relationship, meeting customers where they are, letting them communicate with you the way that they want. So these are all things that obviously enhance your customer experience and of course can lead to revenue. So relationships, building those, maintaining those is at the core.
So building relationships, actually using technology to support the development of relationships. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in this space in particular, it's founded on that connection that they have. These are long-time relationships that these customers have been doing business with distributors for generally many, many years, right? So how can they harness the power of technology to keep and enhance that relationship and not start degrade it or erode it at all? And that's the struggle and the balance, right? Using some of the technologies, I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit later. How do you keep that personal connection?
I think just to add on to that point, I've been in distribution manufacturing for 13 years now. Maybe I'm a glutton for punishment, but I love this market. And I think oftentimes a mentality of, ooh, we don't want to replace this action, whatever it is, right, with technology, because there's a touch point there. There's a relational experience that happens in this interaction, whether it's automation or going digital on an experience, right? You can wind that all the way back to e-commerce. Ooh, we like our customers to call so we can talk to them, right? But to your point, Brian, that you made, it's like, well, let the customer operate in the way that they want to operate. They'll let you know when they want to tap you in for that experience, and you need to be available for that. And if your team is bogged down in operational tasks, are you available at that point on a call when they need you? And so I think there's been like this over index just generally in this market around the touch points. And it's not about just like, oh, well, when I stop by in for my weekly drop-in as a salesperson, there's value. You need to be ready when they want you. And it's not on your terms, it's actually on their terms. And how do you set your business up to be prepared and ready for that?
I love that idea. Charles Schwab in the 90s, when all the E-Trade stuff was going wild, figured out that customers have to be able to interact with you when and how they want. And that could mean walking into the corner Schwab store. It could mean doing something online, it could mean picking up the phone. Possibly there were different ways of interaction based on portfolio size, but meeting them where they want to. But let me throw out a somewhat controversial idea. Please comment. Distributors more or less sell the same products. Maybe they've got a exclusive in one geography for a brand or something. To what extent is customer experience the differentiator, or even the product, if you will, for distributors?
Yeah, so I think that is an interesting angle on this. I mean, I think if you have a high quality customer experience, that is a way in which you can differentiate yourself from your competitors. There are a number of ways that you can really excel. Perhaps it is on the e-commerce side, perhaps it is on, the in-person, but you really have to take a comprehensive view of your end to end and think about it in terms of, well, what is the customer like? How are they interacting with your organization? What is their journey like? Really chart that out. And then you can start to see those potential pain points or moments of delight that you can really accentuate. And maybe that is where your competitive advantage is.
Yeah. So to your point, Jonathan, right? These distributors, for the most part, sell very similar products, right? So how do you differentiate? And I mean, look, you have one choice. You could try to differentiate on price. That's a race to a bottom and not a winning strategy. But there's one. What I think is interesting is a couple of ways that what I see is a misconception out of distributors on how you can compete. So the Dorn Group actually had an awesome study on the state of the channel earlier this year. And there's two data points that I think are really interesting on this. So how they interviewed both the end user, the customer, and they interviewed the distributor to ask how important are these categories. And so when you look at digital, just the idea of it, you could roll e-commerce into that, but just the idea of digital, what's interesting is the customer ranks that extremely high, and the end users, or sorry, the distributors. So the end users ranked it high, the distributors ranked it actually pretty low. So there's a major disconnect between what customers expect and think is a priority versus what distributors still think is a priority. There was like 50 basis points. It was actually the biggest discrepancy in the business of the value chain missing. So first of all, it's like really understand your customer in that point. And then the other one where there was actually the second largest discrepancy is the distributor way over indexed the value of the account manager compared to the customer. The customer actually said, well, they're valuable, but they're not as valuable as you think. So I think step one is like getting on the same page and actually really hearing your customer and understanding what their wants are, and not just like your top 5 customers or a couple in the middle, but like the entire ecosystem of your customer base.
Absolutely. I think what you'll find when you do that is that customer bases vary. So one customer base may put a premium on digital. Another may put a premium on interaction with people. And one customer base may put a premium on product selection, and then for another one, it's product availability. So it's not a one size fits all. Curious other thoughts on the customer experience or CX's differentiation idea.
Yeah, I think to your point, Jonathan, price also can vary sensitivity wise based on the type of customer. Like we see, again, response times, getting back to that customer with a great customer experience and SLA that knows that they're going to get that part when they need it can vary. And that may be more applicable for a smaller job, residential job, a technician mindset, as opposed to a large commercial job where price may be more critical. So it depends on the customer segment. But at the end of the day, we see a lot of data, right, in our text use case where a contractor may text their 3 favorite distributors, and the first one back with the right part, with the availability, wins. And price may not be the key factor here, right? They're trying to look like heroes in front of their customer, and so distributors need to do the same to them. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. So yeah, I agree, particularly in that more transactional space, price is less of a barrier than responding quickly, getting them what they need when they need it.
And I'll hop in too. I agree with that completely too. I think most of the companies that I'm working with is, can you get me what I need when I need it? And then are you easy to do business with, right? So are you offering the self-service options? Are you willing to deal with my specific nuances, how I choose to order with you, how I choose to submit quotes, how I choose to interact with you? And then again, at the end of the day, can you set the right expectations to make sure that I have the product that I need, whether it's for me or for my customer?
Let's start to look at interactions where each of your companies plays a role in distribution. So, Alex, starting with you, if you could just give a brief description of what Continuum does, and then what is your customer's role in creating that customer experience for distributor? How does it manifest? What do you touch in the journey, what touch points, et cetera? So if you could, and we'll go across the panelists for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Continuum is the first reverse logistics platform for B2B distributors and manufacturers. So what does that mean? Anything that moves back up the supply chain, returns, repairs, warranties. And we believe in a world where the customer experience is synonymous between the distributor and the manufacturer. And what I mean by that is if you have a carrier HVAC part that is defective and you need to make a warranty claim on it or return through a distributor, and that process is not efficient and the end user can't get credit back quickly and we can't get visibility to where that return is, that's just as much a carrier problem as it is the distributor at the local level. And so we believe that, supply chain is less about going around distributors and to the end user for that customer experience, because the distributor has the ability to drive the customer experience that a manufacturer doesn't. So how do we work together on that experience? And where we do that is specifically in the returns, warranties, and repairs space, to get, because what we really have is, in some way, we have a bad customer experience that we have to rectify, whether it's their fault, your fault, the manufacturer's fault. But how do we go turn what is a dire situation? I need a new product. I need a replacement now, right? Or this product went out, something's wrong. How can we make a bad experience into a great experience? So that's where we focus all of our time and attention.
So in that scenario, you're saying that the customer is really looking at single neck to choke. and that single neck is the distributor, independent of who the manufacturer is.
Yeah, but the challenge is the bottleneck can be with the manufacturer, and the distributor gets the bad rap.
That's what I'm saying. Single neck to choke, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Graham, take us through the same for your company, please.
Yeah, so Esker works in a couple areas, right? Esker has solutions for accounts payable, accounts receivable, but then also on the customer service side of the house, right? And customer experience can play a role in both AR and customer service. So we're starting to see a lot of transference in some of our solutions kind of connecting with each other, right? But oftentimes on the customer service side of the house, where we play well is when there's manual bottlenecks with order entry, quote creation, or any kind of inquiries that are coming in, generally to a centralized email inbox. What we're able to do is kind of create that single user interface so that all customer facing operations like quotes, potentially claims, inquiries can be managed in that single interface, allowing for a more efficient customer service team, elimination of some of those manual touch points to free them up to either focus on planning, fulfillment type functions, or upskill to other areas of the business as well.
Okay, and did you also mention AR?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So the order entry, quote automation, and AR, all those are all huge touch points for the end customer distribution. Okay, Brian, ProKeep.
Yeah, ProKeep is a communication and commerce platform purpose-built for distributors. Our core mission and the core sort of fundamentals of our platform are improving the customer experience through a centralized communication portal. So all these digital touch points that may be going to historic personal devices or individual email boxes, for example, or a separate web chat tool, we bring all that into one place. Our core persona is a sales rep, particularly a transactional rep, a counter rep. We bring all these communications into one place and allow you to delight with that customer experience in terms of claiming that message, responding quickly. We also have some sales and marketing motions. So we enable sales activity and marketing through outbound messaging. And then we also integrate with other systems to really bring all this together. So we have some integrations with Carrie's products on the Epicor side, with Profit 21, Eclipse, et cetera. We bring in contact syncing between those systems, and we also automate order notifications. So those can go through ProKeep text, and what that allows that text to come from a known branch number, the same number they've been calling for the last 20 years, and they can reply and have a two-way communication if they need to add something else to their cart. So integrations with other systems, whether it be locker pickup, last mile delivery, or core ERPs or CRMs, is a big part of rounding out our solution and the value we bring to our customers.
Huge, very, very exciting. Carrie.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, so as Brian mentioned, Epicor, we are the ERP platform, and we integrate often with Brian's solutions, with ProKeep, with Alex's solutions, with Continuum, with Graham's solutions, with Esker. So we are the end-to-end ERP platform. We're specialized for distributors. And those ERP platforms are Profit 21 and Eclipse. As a matter of fact, Epicor is a $1 billion software company. We're based in Austin, Texas, and we serve the make, move, sell economy. So what that means is we're really focused in on distribution, but also manufacturing, building, supply, retail, and automotive aftermarket. These are essential businesses and closely related in terms of how they require speed, efficiency, high quality to get the job done every day. When it comes to interacting with customers and enabling the customer experience, because we are end to end, there are multiple touch points, right? So this could be, helping really that full company managing inventory, suppliers, financials, purchasing, logistics, warehouse management, pricing, rebates, really so much more to have that very, effective business and with high quality serving customers. And because again, we're end to end, that means going beyond the ERP platform as well. So we offer solutions such as e-commerce technology, business intelligence, AI and automation, shipping technologies, content management. Again, really that full portfolio for a truly omnichannel world-class customer experience. And importantly, that is informed by data across the organization.
I really love that end-to-end perspective. And I'm sure many of our listeners are actually running on one of your platforms. So let's shift now to personalization in customer interactions, and how your company's technology can create that personalized experience, which may end up delighting the customer. Brian, maybe let's start with you.
Yeah, it does run the spectrum in terms of the ability or interest with distributors segmenting their customers, having a clean sort of repository of contact information so that they can drive personalized content. Some don't do it at all. Some treat all the customers the same. Some are way more indexed towards that. Our platform gives them that control and ability. So at the core, we have a contact list, and we may source that from, say, Eclipse and a contact sync, or Salesforce or HubSpot, if those systems are in play. What we find is our customers have very, let's call it dirty contact lists, in the sense that they're not clean. They're not very hygienic. There's a lot of duplication. People are entering the same company and same contact multiple times. We offer a lot of assistance there. At the end of the day, when we're receiving a message from someone, say it's a text inbound, we know the phone number that they're communicating with. So there's no fat fingering capability. We know that contact record. We're using AI now to effectively act as an automated note taker, particularly for a counter rep persona that's not really good at taking notes in a CRM mentality. They're just wheeling and dealing, trying to get that transaction complete and move on to the next one. So extracting intent contact entities out of unstructured communication and applying that into a repository of that customer info is something we're doing a lot of, that type of work, again, to act as a CRM proxy, if you will, for some folks that are not very, very good at that work. So that ultimately empowers your ability to outbound market to these folks correctly with proper contact segmentation, which is a motion that we support. And again, some of our customers, this is new for them, and so we're helping educate them on the potential and capabilities. Also, to a general queue, we can get you to the right person based on your relationships with a particular sales rep. If you're a particular brand or a VIP customer, we can route accordingly, and we have some cascading methodology. Again, all in the spirit of getting your message to the right person quickly and allowing that response to happen with the proper personalization.
Really powerful. What occurs to me as you describe that, Brian, is we've all had the experience on chat of getting, at best, a lukewarm body on the other end, and the frustration that goes along with that process. And that is the opposite of a personalized experience. Sounds like what you're able to do is bring the information together, the longitudinal interaction history, and get them to the right person.
Yeah, and of course, if it's a public, non-authenticated web chat session, we have to find out who you are first. If you're behind an e-com firewall or you're on another customer portal, yes, we're going to have that information at the ready. And what we power our communicators with history. We have the full contact repository of all of the orders, all the communication that has happened with this customer, which empowers them to have a more intelligent conversation right out of the gate.
Graham, Esker.
Yeah. So, where we really play well is between bridging the gap with the digital strategy and manual touch points, right? So I mentioned earlier order entry, for example, right? There's a lot of technologies out there. You have e-commerce, you have EDI, but some customers might not have the sophistication to deploy EDI, and some customers just don't want to take the extra time to go to e-commerce. So what are they doing? They're creating an order in their ERP. They're sending it out via email. It's a PDF. Somebody needs to print that out. They need to have two screens, and then they need to manually enter that, right? So what Esker can do is help kind of bridge that gap where customers have their preferences for how they want to interact, how they want to communicate with you, how they want to send you different data. And then Esker can really be the technology behind that to get it to where it needs to be. So for orders, for example, we would extract all the technology, reference that against what's in the ERP, pass that through, so it can go out for fulfillment, similarly to how an EDI order might come in if that was enabled for touchless, right? But similarly, with some of the customer communication tools that Esker has to offer as well. I was working on a project last year where a company was looking at what I like to call our digital email attendant. So we can layer generative AI over an email inbox to categorize, understand what's in that email inbox, and then provide cues if that's product questions, availability requests, claims, orders, quotes, so on and so forth. But one thing that they really liked was being able to get the analytics based on those categories so that they could actually feed that information back to their digital team so that they can create more self-service options to really personalize what their e-commerce offering looks like to make sure that customers have all of the options. They can either call, email the customer service group, or they can go online and get the information that they're looking for.
So it sounds like EDI and Punch Out are great. For everything else, there's Esker.
Kind of, unfortunately, I think most distributors, most manufacturers, they would love for their customers to abide by their procedures, right? If you want to place an order with us, you need to go online. If you're large enough, you need to place that via EDI. But
Right.
customers just aren't going to adopt, right? What the supplier wants to do. They're going to continue interacting the way that they want to. And that's really where we bridge the gap, is being able to help facilitate those transactions without changing the way that your customer actually interacts with you.
Let me throw out a little bit of a possible use case. So if I send an order in that said big can of PVC glue, what happens the first time Esker sees that? What happens the second time Esker sees that?
So that's a great question, because my mind went a couple different ways, right? So somewhat recently, we introduced generative AI into our extraction tools. So if somebody sent an email that said, "Hey, I need a big can of PVC glue," if at any point in time in the past that was ordered, then we might house a relationship table. Now, if that is coming in a PDF format, as long as the information matches what's in the ERP, that could potentially be a one-touch transaction. If for whatever reason, they say, I need a big can of glue, item 1234. That's their material number. ERP material number is ABCD. Then we could also create that relationship. So that first pass, there might be a touch or two within that order, but by that second, third pass, that might be a candidate for completely touchless ordering.
So that's personalization right there, right? Right. I mean, being able to submit the order in my vernacular, which is big can of PVC glue, instead of having to know the Loctite, SKU or particulars of that. That's personalization. So terrific. Alex, let's talk about personalization in the reverse logistics realm.
So we look at personalization is really situational, right? You need to have situational awareness on the situation that you're dealing with in the context to what is the problem at hand or what is the transaction at hand. And I think when it comes to returns, warranties, repairs, this has not been a process that's been focused on because distributors have said, well, boy, there's so many situations that can arise. How can we automate it and streamline it? And so therefore it's been a manual process with really hand-holding of humans and lack of visibility up and down the supply chain. So when we look at situational personalization, we look at it in the sense of, well, look, if this is a stocking return, I just bought too many. Like that's easy. That's simple. We probably don't need to engage any third parties or anyone else internally. That can be an automated transaction. Where situationally, if I have a damaged, defective product that I installed in the last 30 days, there's an end user out there who has a bad customer experience. And how do we pull in the right parties in the organization to go correct that? Whether we need to reorder, whether we need to make a claim with the vendor. So situationally, how do we engage the right people to correct what is a critical selling event? And then on top of that, keeping the customer abreast every step of the way without having to have human in the loop manually keystroking these, an update every single time. Oh, hey, we're still waiting on vendor, or hey, you know what? We're authorized. We just shipped you a new product. How do we automate the updates that go to the customer and then automate the stop points of that physical product? Because when you talk about reverse logistics, every company is a little bit different and the situations are different about when are we actually applying credits through the supply chain back to the end user. And if you got to think about the end user, I'm eating up my credit with you until I get that credit back. And especially when we're talking about contractors, if that's the end user, that could be valuable credit that they now are going to say, well, I'm eating up my credit line because I have a big warranty claim that's open. I'm going to move over here and spend my credit somewhere else so I can play the credit line game. And so when we think about personalization, it's how do we personalize it for the situation to go correct that scenario that we're in.
That's lovely. I think one of the big things that we all learned during COVID was with supply chain issues, and it's going to apply to your reverse logistics case, is customers will work with you as long as you keep them informed to the extent that they can. I mean, if there's, if the pipeline is broken and there's oil spilling out in Iowa, that's got to be fixed now. But to the extent that customers can work with you if you keep them informed, that's a huge form of personalization. And then along with the efficiency that you're talking about. Carrie, opportunities abound for Epicor to personalize. Let's hear how you guys play in that game.
Yes, absolutely. You're right. There are so many different ways in which you could personalize experiences across the business, but you can't have personalization, of course, without the right data. And the ERP is a great backbone. It's a great location to really store that data. Then you need the tools to ensure you're governing it correctly, right? So you want to ensure it's accurate, updated, and then being shared appropriately, highly securely, and to the right people at the right time for the right reasons. So that's a key part of how we manage personalization across the customer experience. We've actually been doing some investments in this area recently. Epicor acquired a company called Grow. It's a business intelligence platform, full end-to-end BI platform. And what we've been doing is integrating that across our distribution portfolio and then serving up in context business intelligence to that person in the screen that they're in. So for example, you could be entering an order for your customer and perhaps you want to see, well, how many sales have I had with this company over the past year? What is the largest transaction? How many have I had over the last 3 months? These are the kinds of questions that you could be in that screen within your, Profit 21 system, for example, and then reference that content very quickly. It would be served up again in context to that user where they are. Just as an example, right? There are multiple as we're looking across the full spectrum of customer experience, but this is an area that is really important to us and to our customers because it is so pivotal in the success of a business to retain loyal customers, especially given how many, the market that's out there now and so many pressures. So yeah, personalization, just as an example, really being informed by data, depending on who you are and what you're looking to do.
So
I just I actually just had a LinkedIn post about this. I think it was last week at some point. But like to Carrie's point, when it comes to the ERP, I think everyone on this call, right? Graham, Brian, or I think Brian, you'd have an integration, but like we all need to integrate to the ERP, right? Because it's the backbone with the data, and the more hygiene you have. And not even just hygiene, I'd bucket them. So the hygiene's one piece, but then just the stratification and data that you have allows for higher personalization with these add-on technologies. So like just as a real life example, like we can go check the ERP and see, hey, if it's a drop ship order, like are we going to tap in the vendor right away on this return, right? But if you have the better quality data you have with an ERP that can easily serve that up to your add-on technologies, those technologies can be better for it using machine learning to say, okay, well, this is how we handle these situations. And so I'd say, the ERP is critical. And so I think we all kind of as a community need to continue to focus on how do we push data so that we can have the hygiene that we need so we can all personalize to an even higher degree.
Let me ask a related follow-on question to our panelists. How is personalization related to customer experience? Why is personalization important for customer experience?
I could take that one.
It's so many thoughts.
Yeah, well, I mean, somebody said it is because we're all customers in our personal lives, and I think it's really we carry those expectations to our professional lives. And, the consumer technologies are so highly informed. And, when I, log on to the applications that I use, I fully expect it to be curating the data and information for me. And that's the expectation that our distributors customers have every day. Our distribution companies, they have those expectations of the ERP. And so it's really important, I think, to think about that person in the seat using that technology and ensuring that it's a personalized experience for that person.
And I think so what we saw during COVID, right, is everybody's going on Amazon, everybody's going to Walmart.com, and then all of a sudden that became kind of native to us. And I know with the customer service leaders that I'm talking to, they're seeing a lot more B2C trends in B2B for customers wanting it to be very easy to do business, have that e-commerce offering, be able to address questions immediately. If there is a return, if there is a credit that's necessary, how do we process that immediately? And I think, I don't want to say it's necessarily set unrealistic expectations, but it's forced a lot of suppliers to really review their processes to ensure that, hey, we can meet these requirements, we can better communicate with their customers, set those expectations, and then also better understand their specific nuances. Because I think we've all worked with companies that have that one customer that's just very different than the rest of their customer base. And how do you try to adhere to those specific requests, or again, those specific nuances that customer chooses to operate by?
Well, in a sense, maybe before we hear from other panelists, this theme is about how tech enables personalization. That's what good reps do, right? So we're trying to somehow take over part of what either a customer service rep or a field sales rep does, and we're trying to have that be technology enabled. So,
well, so if the how does tech enable personalization, right? That's the overall theme.
Yeah.
I went on and I looked at probably 6 or 7 different job descriptions of open roles for CSRs in distribution before this call, just because I think it's always so interesting. And if you look at the number of activities, actions in a job description for a distributor, for a CSR, like this is a transactional by nature role, right? Like, so where do they in a day-to-day have time to personalize? So I think that you need to be looking at personalization, not even just, I mean, yes, how can your tech enable your people to personalize, but where can it remove barriers where they don't have time even themselves to personalize communications, follow-ups? So how, rather than looking at like, okay, we're replacing humans and personalizing, how can it, one, serve up more personalization, and 2, eliminate these mundane, repetitive, transactional tasks that are keeping these people away from doing what's actually delivering a great customer experience? Because I'll tell you what, your customer doesn't care if it's a human or a machine that's entering that order. They don't care if it's a human or a machine that's entering that return. If they're getting it faster, more accurately, that's what they want. And then you can add a human on top of that. Okay, well, now we're talking about a great customer experience. And so I think, when you look at the overall org structure and chart, you really need to think about, like, what are the roles that I actually want a human doing? What are the roles I want technology doing? And where's the middle ground where technology should be assisting humans?
Beautiful.
We talk a lot about human enablement, not replacement. If you think about, again, this counter rep persona, we call them almost the human API. They have all of this knowledge up here. They know the personalization of all their customers, what they like to buy, how they like to get it delivered. It's difficult to scale that. It's difficult for generational.
Human API is genius, by the way.
Yeah, right. Again, it goes back to this relationship aspect. But we all struggle with the sort of generational change in this industry and technology being a part of it. And again, how, to Alex's point, how can we sort of empower that and put some jet fuel on that? Just a common use case for us in COVID, Graham, to your point, was sort of adding jet fuel to this. ProKeep was born with a very simple premise, and our co-founders sat in distributor counters and watched those experts sit there having to juggle with a phone on this ear, walk up counter, fax coming in, And then their phones were getting texted individually. And of course, during COVID, when all the stores were closed, the locations were closed, you had to communicate differently. And so, having all that information locked in, Jerry at the counter's head isn't very scalable. Having that information on someone's personal device when they received a text from a customer also isn't very scalable. So bringing that all into one place and now being able to layer in some of these technologies that we're all talking about with large language models and AI, et cetera, is exactly where we're headed. But at the end of the day, right, it is about that human enablement and making them be more efficient and drive a better customer experience.
And I'll add to that again a little bit too. So I know that a lot of our customers choose to create some of those efficiencies with those back office processes, specifically so that they can spend more time on the phones answering customer questions. Reduce the wait times when customers are calling, or again, just provide them more time in their day. Because to Alex's point, if you start looking at some of these CSR openings, they have order entry, they have claims resolution, they have quote creation, they have answer the phone, respond to customer emails, help with change orders, potentially set expectations for, when are the orders going to be received. That's a lot, and oftentimes there's a lot of overtime that's in there. If customer service rep is spending a lot of time, or taking a lot of time rather out of their personal life to work 2 hours, 3 hours of overtime every night, they might not be as happy as they might be if they're doing a flat 40. So reducing that, makes that employee happier potentially, which can also provide a better experience to those customers because they actually have a smile on their face, right?
I'd say this too, when it comes to technology and personalization and serving these things up. I think you want to be very mindful as a distributor about who in your business you're employing to help you evaluate these things. Because what you have when you're talking about like what Brian had talked about, right? Using technology to augment the human, not replace the human, but augment them. Naturally, it's human nature, right? So it's not any specific thing. It's human nature. They're going to say, well, it's not going to help me because of this, or it can't do it because of this, right? Because what human would want to think that what I'm doing is capable of being replaced? I'm replaceable. That part of my job is replaceable. So I think as you look at these technologies that are augmenting personalization, automating tasks so that you can deliver a better customer experience, you want to be very thoughtful in who you're engaging from your team, and ones that are super, forward thinking, that want to push the envelope on this, that are able to decipher like, yeah, that actually is going to move the ball forward, even though we have people who've been here for 20 years who won't see that right away. They will eventually. And so I think you want to be mindful when you're going through that evaluation, because if you get everyone around the table, they might look at ProKeep and be like, oh, we don't need a text. They call me. They love to call me. Like, well, does everyone love to call you? Yeah, that's what they've been doing for 20 years. So, I'm off my soapbox on that one, but
behavior change is hard. Behavior change is a difficult thing. What's interesting for us is when we get that pushback, we get to see the data. Well, actually, that contact is texting 3 other distributors. We see it. So do they really want to call you?
So let's spend a minute on that change while you're on that, Brian. How do we see customer expectations evolving for distributors? What's changing? How might distributors adapt their strategies and technologies to meet these changing demands?
Yeah, I think we touched on a lot of it. Graham noted it, particularly during COVID, was sort of the rocket ship here for consumer expectations and behaviors shifting very rapidly. The Amazon effect, all those things, marketplaces now popping up. I think these are all indications of, again, distributors needing to change the way they've historically thought about serving their customers. I think we've touched on it on a bunch of different angles. You have to meet the customers where they are. You have to meet their expectations, and those have significantly changed, right, in a very short amount of time.
I think the other thing is just not thinking about it monolithically, right? So, for example, ooh, just I mean, you keep using ProKeep as an example. You could use it with Esker, right? And you can use it with it's same with Continuum, right? And so, but like, ooh, not every single one of my customers would text in. It's like, of course not. That's not the intention, right? It's how do you cater to open the net up so that you can invite more of these people in? And when you invite them in, they have an experience that feels like it was built for them, right? And so you have these different strategies in your business that you employ so that when that net opens up, you maybe now cater to a new generation, to a new customer segment, and when they go through that experience with you, they're like, wow, I love doing business with them. Well, maybe the customer B is like, man, I just love picking up the phone or coming in and doing everything. That's fine. Not every tool needs to cater to every single one of your customers. Maybe there's an element where it will. Maybe it's occasionally they will. But I think it's kind of opening that net up, which is going to allow you to attack more generations, wider customer segments, and maybe even move into different markets.
So it's
And I
not one
think,
size fits all. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
oh, I was just going to say, I was thinking about a story. I have a customer that I work with, they're a distributor. Um, and they had a lot of challenges when it came to changing how their customers interact with them. And what they found was that if they set the right expectation with those customers to say, hey, if you're able to do this for us, then we can give you these results, which means that we're going to be able to set better expectations. We're going to be able to lower the resolution times when you have various inquiries, various disputes, right? And at the end of the day, you'll be able to find this information here, so you don't have to take the time calling. And what do you know? Their adoption was tremendous because they were able to set those proper expectations, which allowed them to their customers to have a little bit more of a personalized customer experience because they're going through the proper channels, which means that they can get taken care of faster. And then also it enabled this company to deploy this technology that they were concerned about, right? So it ended up helping really the customer service, or I'm sorry, the customer experience for their internal customers and their external customers.
So I have a different viewpoint of that, and I'll push back on it just a bit, right? So
Please do.
You'll if you get to know me, you'll know like I'm not shy about a good debate, right? Doesn't mean I'm right and I'm wrong often, but if you're asking your customer to change, you've potentially created a friction point, right? Like I'm just going to give an example, right? You ask a customer to change off of like, hey, you're emailing your orders, please use this document now, or you want to email your returns, now you have to go to this portal. You've created a potential friction point that maybe they will bend to, but if they go somewhere else and like, man, I can do anything I want and they make it work, right? To at a different distributor, maybe it just knocks down one NPS point and they haven't really quantified it, but there's a rub there, right? And so like I look at it and like, we look at the returns, like we have large language models. So if a customer wants to email in a return in the body of a text, like great, that's fine. You want to go to the e-commerce portal and do a return or warranty claim? Great, meet us there, right? We don't have a phone yet, right? But like, we're getting there. Our technology is amazing. Like I think like when I talk about that net, like I think anytime you go to the customer, like, oh, can you please just change the way you're doing this? I think you just erode that experience one little bit. And so that's just my only thought as you're going through that.
The one thing that I'll add to that is I think you have to have a good reason, right? If it's a
Yeah.
mutually beneficial change, right? So, hey, if you can do this, I can provide this for you. That's the only place I've seen it work. If, hey, to make my life a little bit easier,
Yeah.
can you start doing this? No,
Yeah.
they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
No matter how personalized their experience has been, how much they love you, they are going to continue doing what they do unless they can get something out of changing the way that they're doing it.
So I think a couple key themes here are, again, meeting the customer where they are, not forcing them to change. And then Alex, I think you pushed back on what I said. It's not about replacing what the salesperson does. It's about enabling. In some cases, it's about automating what the salesperson or CSR does, but in more cases, it's more about enabling them, taking away the mundane things to allow them to deliver higher levels of service. I want to close with one question to just two of our panelists, Brian and Carrie. We have a question from the audience. Churn is a pain point for all distributors. briefly, how can technology help blunt that churn?
I'll go ahead and get started on this because there's also something I wanted to mention. I saw that question. We spoke a bit about generative AI today, and I think that is one of the exciting things that is pushing change across the organization. And kind of to the discussion that we had just had as well, it's also, meeting the customer where they are, but also inspiring change. And inspiring change can be done through really exciting value creation. So technologies like generative AI, these new advancements are creating new and exciting ways to tackle really tough problems like churn that distributors face. But it needs to be done in a way in which is highly focused on value and really generating ROI in the business. And I think that this is one of the exciting new tools and technologies that we can use to further inform our employees who are interacting with customers, inform those automations as they're interacting with our systems, and make recommendations in a human-centric way that can really elevate the customer experience. So I think there's exciting change on the horizon because of new technologies that are inspiring this.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, for me, as we talk about our customers as distributors and we think about the same way that they think about their customers, we look to solve problems. We look to understand pain and what can our technology do to help alleviate that pain. So from a distributor to their customer perspective, right, contractors want to get that information timely. So again, automating order notifications coming in text is a use case we solve quite a bit, and we've solved it with some Epicor products, right? So those communications, instead of going to an email box, if they're on the job, they're going to get a text. They may not get the email, right? And they may have a question about that delivery, or they may need to add something to it, and they get a chance to respond very quickly, very easily. Things like that. Again, opening up other opportunities for e-procurement at a more sort of commercial end of the scale here to make it easier to move material. At the end of the day, again, I come back to where we started this conversation. It's all about the relationship. It's about making those your customers look like heroes in front of their customers, right? And we could have passed that all the way up the spectrum, all the way to manufacturers, frankly. But that's the key for me, is again, back to what we've been talking about, making sure you're addressing a customer's pain point, either that's the right data, the right info, the right product at the right time, or meeting them where they are. All those things kind of all tie back together. And technology certainly is an enabler for that.
Fantastic. I want to thank each of you, Alex, Brian, Graham, Carrie. Really, really terrific session today. Got a couple more things to share about upcoming programs that we have. So next week, we've got 2024 State of Distributor Technology, building your tech stack for success. So Ian and I will be on that show. It's sponsored by Epicor and by White Cup. And then 2 weeks from today, same time, we'll have transforming independent distributors into a unified force. Renata Morgan, who's president of Ream, which is a manufacturer. She came from distribution. She's now president of a division of the manufacturer, will be our featured person on that program. That is also sponsored by White Cup. Again, thank you to our panelists. Thank you for our audience. And have a great day and carry forth in creating a better customer experience. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.